and welcome back to the CILT UK podcast, the show where leading voices from across transport, logistics and the supply chain come together to explore the issues shaping our profession. I'm Anna Jane Hunter, Chair of CILT UK, and it's great to have you with us again. We are now in episode 3, and this time we're focusing on a topic that is increasingly important to the future of our industry and one that I'm personally passionate about: inclusivity and diversity. Across transport, logistics and supply chain, organisations are recognising that creating inclusive environments is not only the right thing to do, but also essential for building strong, high-performing teams. In a sector that relies on collaboration, problem-solving and operational excellence, the ability for people to feel supported, valued and able to contribute fully can make a real difference. There's also a growing opportunity to ensure that careers in logistics and transport are accessible to a wider range of people, bringing in new perspectives, new ideas and new talent. So in this episode, we'll explore what inclusive environments look like in practice, how they support performance and development, and what the future could look like for a more inclusive industry. I'm absolutely delighted to introduce our two guests, which I'm pleased to say makes this an all-female lineup for the first time today. So our first guest is Emily Ryan from Foodbuy, who brings experience across procurement, supply chain, and with a strong understanding of how people and culture shape performance. More on that in a minute. Our second guest is Hannah Kasongo from Jaguar Land Rover, working within a global organisation where collaboration, innovation and people development are central to success. Emily, Hannah, welcome to the podcast.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you for having us.
Not at all. You're more than welcome. I'm really excited about our discussion today. And I think we should start by looking at the connection between inclusion and performance, because we're all running businesses, right? And we don't want inclusion for inclusion's sake.
Yeah.
In transport and logistics, everything's fast-paced, it's operational. We all know teamwork, communication and trust are essential. But I really want to hear about your day-to-day experiences about this. So, Hannah, can we start with you? And just tell me a bit about, what do you think? How does inclusivity affect performance in your world?
I think inclusivity affects all of us, like on a day-to-day, from all levels of the business. I think all of us are problem solvers innately, being in the sector that we're all in. And the world continues to evolve, and there's a lot of macro environment factors that we can't sort of plan for. We just sort of have to be reliable, and we have to be adaptive and problem solvers. So I think being in an environment that's comfortable, where you can just show up as your best self, really does help. I'm really fortunate that my team is incredibly diverse, and every day when we see a supply chain problem, we can just focus on the problem. Oftentimes, I think when people feel not comfortable, they almost put a mask on themselves and they spend time performing as opposed to doing their role. And I think that safety in feeling comfortable, you can just get on with your work. And I think it also provides an opportunity to focus on extra stuff, looking at development, looking at progression. If you're comfortable with your day-to-day role, you've got time and you've got that space and that sort of capacity to do that extra developmental opportunity, sign up for other stuff. But if you just focus on performing and trying to be something that you're not, it's not always the best sort of experience.
And exhausting, right? So Emily, I'm going to bring you in now. I've heard about your CV. You've worked for some big names. You'll tell us more about that. What does a high performing team look like for you in terms of diversity? Have you seen that? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, I've had to deal with a lot of stuff operationally in terms of making sure we deliver in the moment, whether that was in retail in Tesco, a big environment that I worked in, to where I work now within food service, and some of the people that we feed are school children and healthcare, so patients that we're feeding. So making sure that I've got a team of lots of different skills to enable to deliver that, not only day to day, but when times get tough and we can kind of have a bit of a call to arms is really, really important. So I think across the team, having people from different backgrounds with different skill sets and a whole balance of that is extremely important. So when I set up a new team or I join a new team, I'm always making sure that people bring different things to the table, because otherwise if you've got the carbon copy of the same person, you're not going to succeed, and you're not going to be able to respond to those challenges that may arise.
It's like we've been sat in the studio today, haven't we, getting ready, and that mixing deck thing of, you know, dialing some things up and dialing some things down. Like, that diverse team just allows you to complement each other, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it needs to be reflective of kind of your end consumer as well. So that's something that's really important to me as well, was thinking about who you're delivering a service to, who you're providing a product to. You have to be representative of that as well. You can't just have a team that isn't covering all your different customer bases. So that's always important to remember and reflect. What type of people are we serving? Who is the customer? And making sure that they show up in your team as well.
Interesting. And Hannah, you mentioned supporting people, including people in the team. So for you personally, what does feeling supported at work, what does that look like? How does that feel in a good team?
I think it feels really I feel privileged, to be honest. I know that not, you know, many people feel that, but I think for me it's knowing that I am trusted, which is a huge thing. Absolutely, you know, to deliver, especially when you talk about the end customer. Of course, being at JLR, we're always focusing on our end customer to deliver that the best of the best product, you know, that modern luxury product. So I think being in an environment where I feel included, I just feel trusted by my team, I can crack on. I think it also, you know, comes down to also feeling like I'm representing for the next gen, or that I'm seeing representation in management, in my team. I think that's also really, really incredibly important to me. And I think I get that experience now. And I think for that next gen coming up, seeing that representation will only then make them feel included from outside in before they've even began the journey of entering our industry. I also feel pretty happy and peaceful to go to work. There's nothing worse than going to work and you're so frustrated. You're thinking, nobody understands what I go through. Nobody has the same experience. I mean, we all have a lived experience, but nobody's going to get it. You know, if I've gone to church on a Sunday, or if I'm fasting for Ramadan and I don't have the energy, that understanding of each other's experiences.
I'm really intrigued at some of the language you use there is fascinating, about feeling privileged and trust. And as a young woman of colour, you feel that where you work. Do you see that in other environments? Do you think that's... do you feel lucky that you have that at JLR, or do you think that's typical of what other people experience across, you know, maybe the rest of the sector?
I think it's something that's growing. I think it's growing even in JLR. From the time that I started, I can only continue to see more people that look like me. I think we have a ways to go, not in JLR necessarily, but collectively all sectors, all industries. But I think it's also around, you know, things that we can't always see, so like non-visual aspects of inclusion and diversity as well. But I do feel privileged that JLR really champions that sort of D&I charter for everybody, not just women who look like me or men who look like me.
That's awesome. It's lovely to hear you talk so positively about it. Emily, is that the same experience for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's changed over time. So I wanted to kind of build upon what was said there. I think when I first started off in the industry, and at that point Tesco was known as kind of quite hard-nosed business, right, that treated maybe suppliers, customers not that nicely, and it absolutely was the case being in there. So I think that's 15 years ago now. We used to have people standing up, screaming down the phone, not treating each other nicely. And people always talk about the phrase treat people how you'd like to be treated, but it should be treat people how they would like to be treated. But I think within the industry, leadership skills and the importance of different leadership skills has changed. We were talking about leading with empathy and being authentic. I think for me, I'm starting to see more of that. That's what I want to stand for as a leader. I want my people to feel valued. I want them to understand that I care. I want to know if they've been to church at the weekend, or if they're fasting, do I need to support them there? Do we need to adapt your hours? What do you need to do? So I think the importance of those softer skills is coming through more now than it ever did. When I talk about 15 years ago, it's not just that same leader that's in the workplace now. I think it's really important that we do recognise that those things are much more important. And I think one of the phrases that has stuck with me is that someone said to me once in terms of feedback is, "You're just too nice." And I'm okay with that. I want to be nice. I want my team to feel valued. I want them to feel that I care.
But I don't get too nice from you. I mean, you're lovely, but like
That's all right.
That almost doesn't sound like a compliment.
But
you know, I feel like you can hold your own.
But that
not
was
too
seen
nice.
as a negative, right, previously. And there can be a balance. I can be assertive when I want to be. But I want people to like me and I want them to want to work for me, right? That's really important. And taking an interest in who they are and their uniqueness.
And that advocacy,
important.
It's nice for people to, it's important and great for people to want to work for you. But I also think it's great for them to, when they do leave, because you want people to leave eventually.
Of course.
You want them to grow, spread their wings.
Yeah.
It's one of the things you have to accept as a leader. But then you want them to go and tell people that they did enjoy working for you and even encourage others to come and work for you. I mean, what better compliment than for somebody to say, oh, I loved working in that team. You know?
100%. Something I learned when I first started working in the industry from a good mentor of mine was, once you've got the job, that's like 10% of it. You've already got in the door. Like, we know you can do the role, or you'll learn and we'll teach you to do the role. But your brand is like 60%.
Absolutely,
who you represent, me and our team, but who you represent yourself, how you show up as yourself. Your brand actually carries you through. And actually, oftentimes, your brand is the conversation that's in the door. It's not what's on your CV once you've got in, or what's on, the portal to apply for the role. So I think it's really important that people can sort of share that and sort of promote that in other teams.
I agree with you, and I think values is something that I always come back to as well as brand, right? We often do an exercise within the team about what are your values, what's important to you, and do we have any overlap? And a lot of the time you do. If you've built a good team, you're going to have differences, but at the same time you are going to want to achieve the same goal. But that's an important exercise to understand each individual 100%. Person and who they are as well.
100%. We talked a lot about support in and amongst that, so kind of building on what we've discussed. What does supporting a diverse team look like for you? So Emily, you're smiling. What do you want to say about that?
No, that's a really important one to me, and I think it's something that I've learned over time being a leader and a manager. I would come back to the basics, right? There's basics in terms of structure of what should be in place for somebody, for them to feel supported. Whether that is having a clear job description, clear objectives, clear KPIs, how do I feed into the overall strategy, making sure people know where they are. Basics in terms of they have regular one-to-ones, you have team check-ins, they have a personal development plan. I say this really informally, but actually a lot of people don't have that in the workplace.
And everything you just said there has got nothing to do with gender, skin colour, religion, any of the things we think of in diversity, but it's the basics, right? And it's important.
Absolutely.
To all people.
Yeah. And just always, as well, something that I would always talk about to people who are becoming a manager is not always thinking just about policy. Yes. What does it say? What does HR say? With everything as well, you need to always add a human lens because that's extremely important. Don't just turn something down or say no to something because it says that you've got to always consider in someone's unique circumstances what might have happened, particular things in their life, whether it is bereavement or having a baby for mum or dad. What does it look like? And adapting it. And that is what people value, and they feel supported in those tough times when you take that human lens, as well as balancing day to day, doing the basics right, being there when it matters to them as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think also listening before leading.
Absolutely, listening.
Oh, I like that, Hannah. Say more about listening before leading.
I think oftentimes people will share their most vulnerable selves if you just give them the space to.
Absolutely.
And often maybe old style management is do A, B, C, and D. And if they do take that approach of looking at and following what the company policies say, they'll just, have you done that KPI? How are you on track with this? Not how are you feeling about that? Absolutely. Is that realistic for you based on what you've got going on right now? Do we want to prioritize, and just giving them that space to talk?
Checking in with them, right? On a regular
100%.
Basis.
I think also continuing to be curious, which you touched upon previously, but that curiosity to understand what's going on with them, I think that also helps to build that inclusive environment. And I think oftentimes leaders tend to some leaders may tend to not do that. And I think the impact that has, there's lack of connection.
I see that often, right? I have seen that, and it's really obvious when they don't care, right? People just want their manager, their leader to care.
Of course. And I think, I don't know if you guys have heard of the term soft quitting.
Soft quitting, tell us more.
Soft quitting refers to, please, I hope I don't get this wrong, but essentially it means, you know, if you have a task list of like 8 things, you might just do those 8 things at the bare minimum. So you're quitting softly, as opposed to like, I resign. It's the everyday little activity. You don't go above and beyond. You don't seek feedback to understand this piece of work that I've done. Is it at the standard that you want? You just deliver it, and you just... you probably don't, you know, ask your stakeholder, what else can we do?
The bare minimum.
You do the bare minimum.
Yeah.
And oftentimes there's a lot of that. I always see on LinkedIn different stories of that. But a team that is motivated, supported, listened to, don't soft quit. They go above and beyond.
Okay, so that's that high performing thing again. Yeah.
Yes.
I want to ask you both about networks. I think you've both been involved in different organisations and different, more of these formal networks, diversity networks. And I want you to have a little bit of a think and tell us about how you think they can offer support and what role they play. And can we have a think about whether you think it's changing? Because they've come on a journey, haven't they, these groups? And where are we up to? So who wants to start?
I can go.
I don't
Go.
mind.
Yeah, I'll talk about one probably that is important to me. So at Tesco there was the parent and carer network, right? So really important, looking after both ends of the spectrum, right? So when you have a young child and you bring them into the world, what does that look like for you in the workplace? And also at the other end, when you might have aging parents or somebody who's poorly as well, right, that you have to look after. That's something that I think has been really good in terms of shining a light on that and the importance of it, and making sure that people are supported in those times of change within their lives. I think so I'm a working mum, that's really hard to balance, and making sure that I can show up to work and be trusted to do school drop off, or if I have to go to a swimming lesson, that I'm able to do that. I think creating the environment that I'm able to do that and succeed is really important to me, and that's why I moved to Foodbuy in particular, because that was something I felt that they did really well. But the network in Tesco helped really, I guess, shape different policies and shine a light on it and lead the way, which wasn't necessarily there before.
Yeah. So you think it helped?
Yeah,
having that formal
absolutely.
network?
And for me as a manager, right, to understand it, not only for me as a parent, but also how can I help the others around me. And something that I always talk about is that when someone might have a baby, it's not just mum that needs to be looked after, returning from maternity leave. It might be dad or whoever it may be, that making sure that they're okay as well within that time, because it's not just babies arrived. It's an ongoing thing. Dad might come back, is having sleepless nights. And for mum, when returning to work, it's really hard. You're leaving your small little person that you've been with 24/7. So that's one of the networks that I think within any industry it's really important, parent and carer.
Parent and carers network, that's one of the ones I've heard of. Love that you talk there about it's not just the mother, it's the father.
Absolutely,
that's definitely changing, I think, in that space. Hannah, what networks have you been involved in, and what role do you think they play where you've been?
I've been in a few. Similarly, the networks that JLR has drew me to them. It was one of the things I said in my interview, to be fair. I think all the different networks we have, you know, from Jen, from African Caribbean Heritage Network, from Shine as well, which also highlights like neurodivergent individuals, parent and child, we have that network as well. I think these networks, first and foremost, educate one another in the business, because, you know, these are individuals who are leading, who give their time. JLR allows us to have part of our week, if we are part of a network, to have that dedicated time, which again, I'm just, you know, proud of and I'm grateful for. But that time allows us, for them individuals, to really promote and educate the wider business and those individuals' lived experience. And I think, you know, if you are struggling at work, perhaps, that network gives you an increased amount of community. In a workplace, we spend 60% of our time at work. So if you could, you know, get with people who have the same experiences as you, that gives you like another perspective. Diversity in thought is really important, but you might not always get that with your team. So having that network that you can sort of turn to be like, my team is going through this, I'm going through this personally, that does help. And everyone goes through stuff in life. So, you know, if you've got that space to talk to people comfortably at work of what's going on outside of work, that again helps, because we spend so much of our time at work.
I love the community, the use of the word community there, because I think it's so important that community's there when you need it, but you don't know when you're going to need it.
Yes.
And my husband just started getting involved in the men's network where he works in the railway. And I think it's really lovely because it's given them a safe space to speak. And at the moment, you know, he's fine. He doesn't have any issues, but he's spoken about issues he's had in the past. And just doing that gives an environment where, you know, men in particular can find it a bit difficult to speak openly. So networks can really do that. So that's great to hear that you've also had some positive experiences. I want to move on to a really big topic that we come back to in every kind of discussion we have, I feel like, which is that of leadership. And you are leaders, we are leaders, you know, we wouldn't be on this podcast if we weren't leaders in our industry. So I want you to just talk to me a little bit about how, you know, how have you supported others in that kind of diversity space, in that leadership role? How do you step into and own that, Emily?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, being there and supporting, we spoke about a moment ago, and that empathy is really important to me. So I want people to feel like they're valued, that I give them recognition when they needed it. That should never be underestimated in the small thank yous to the more elaborate ones for whatever might have been achieved in that moment. But I think just coaching people as well, making sure they've got the right development opportunities. It's your job as a leader to offer them that and put them in scenarios where they're able to showcase their skills and progress. It's important that we give people feedback as well. Regular feedback for me is something that I always talk about. It shouldn't just come down to a half year or an end of year review. Talk to people on a daily basis, making sure you're giving them snippets of coaching and support of how they can improve. And it goes the same way as well. I always say to people, please tell me if I'm doing something that you don't like, because I won't get it right all of the time either. So please talk to me if there's something that you'd like to see me do a little bit differently. So for me, the leadership is about coaching, supporting and development, as well as obviously we spoke about all the softer bits in terms of getting to know people. That's really important. One of the things that we like to do is, in the team that I have at the moment, on a Friday, we have an afternoon check-in where we don't talk about work. We just say, what are you doing this weekend? Tell us what you're doing, which is so nice. And we get to hear, sometimes people have really exciting plans. Sometimes people don't, but it's just lovely to hear what's going on with people. And then that opens up the conversation into the next week. What did you do? How did that go?
Although I have seen that done really badly lately with people I think they've been on a course and somebody's told them to do that. And so it brings me on to, Hannah, you mentioned authentic leadership. I feel like sometimes that's not very authentic when somebody, you know, goes, so what are you doing this weekend? And you kind of feel like, do you really care what I'm doing this weekend, or has somebody told you to ask that question? So I'm really interested to know what you think authentic leadership looks like for you.
I think authentic leadership looks like follow through. You know, that accountability piece. If they do ask you what are you doing this weekend and you say, I'm going to have food on Saturday, then I'm going for a walk, or I'm picking up my dog, or I guess personally I'm going to church on Sunday. Circling back and following through, how did those things go? Remembering, taking time to really get to know your team. I think it also is accountability. If somebody has given some feedback and there are tangible points you can work on, or perhaps you might feel that you want to follow up with them, be authentic in saying, I don't quite understand that. Don't just receive it. I think oftentimes people might receive feedback and then just sort of say, okay, thank you. There's no follow through.
Absolutely.
There's no asking for further sort of confirmation. And I think just bringing your best self to work. I love how on a Friday, our team, we sort of have a quiz every Friday, and we rotate it from not only managers and our line manager, but also that working level to host that. And oftentimes
we change who the host is. So it's not just
helps.
the manager.
No, and it's not just like that working level
as well.
It's experience about presenting, and it's like that opportunity to like show. Like, for example, I might just, do the 2010s, or somebody might do the 90s, or like animals or facts, things that people are personal about. And I think where managers sort of humble themselves, if you will, and open themselves up, I think when they're authentic, we feel safe to be authentic.
I love that quizzes are living beyond the COVID days.
Absolutely.
So it would be remiss of us to not talk about the future. Hannah, you're really involved in next generation logistics. I really want to hear about how you think that links with diversity and inclusion. It feels like a natural fit to me, but I'd be really interested to hear your perspective.
Yes. So I am part of the Chartered Institute of Logistics, CILT's Next Gen. forum. There is 3 of us young women who actually co-chair it, which I just love first and foremost.
Yeah,
Myself,
which in itself is quite a
I think that's
a
incredible.
thing, you know, job sharing, co-chairing. This is quite a female approach, I think.
100%, and we manage it so well. Like, you know, Rebecca and Laura, they're both super busy, as am I, and I think that element of allowing each other to thrive in, you know, if somebody gets a promotion or if someone's doing a course, we can just support each other and just show up. And I think we really, really trust in each other. Like, women are really good at trusting in each other to deliver. So from a perspective of the forum that I'm a part of, we in ourselves, as leading that, we are diverse. I think also the boom post-COVID, so many people discovered what our sector is after COVID. You know, people say what's like supply chain, and you just say it's just Amazon, and they start to like click.
Yeah. And toilet rolls, as we were talking about earlier.
That's a good example, actually. And so I think the boom of post-COVID has really provided people the first insight into what our sector is, and it's been 5 years now, or 6, sorry. But that is going to provide so many opportunities for new people, people who may not have traditionally been in our sector to come in. And I think that increase in new talent, the increase in lots of e-commerce businesses, you know, I always see like a Pretty Little Thing or something would have like a supply chain coordinator. Yeah. You think to yourself, like, had COVID not happened, would somebody know what supply chain coordinator is? But they'll know what Pretty Little Thing is. And that joining of that, those two things, I think are incredible. And diversity and new people coming in, I think age, obviously being that I'm a next gen, I'm really passionate about that. But having leaders that are modern, empathetic, compassionate, accountable, you know, open, it makes the next gen feel comfortable because this is what we stand for. These are our values, you know. Okay. So I think the next generation, the way they act, their experiences, what they stand for is diverse.
And their expectations of us as old fogies is that they expect those things from us, right?
And they hold individuals accountable, which I love.
Emily, you must be seeing the next gen coming through literally in your world. So what does that look like for you? What do they expect of us? What are you having to do differently?
Differently, just to build quickly upon the importance of supply chain and how that's come out, right? I think I always say when I talk to not only my team but the wider business or customers or suppliers, whoever, we are the most important part of the chain.
Yes.
If this doesn't happen, everything else is completely pointless. You can do the best marketing campaign. You can agree the best price, but if the product or service isn't delivered, all of that is completely,
it's not on the shelf, then
pointless. You can't just sell fresh air, right? That's what they say. Silly phrase, but that is what they say. But absolutely, people that are coming through now, I think the skills that they need are completely different to what we used to, right? I think coming back to kind of some of the harder skills, it used to be very like KPI driven, these are the numbers, but actually what delivers now is having different people within your team who have some of the soft skills to do that. And whether that is collaboration, which is probably top of the list, problem solving that we spoke about, but also the ability to analyse data in the right time frames, use all the technology that you spoke about. Those are the skills that they're bringing to the table, and upskilling the rest of the team and taking them with them, myself included, and just staying up to date about what's happening in the industry, that you don't fall behind as well. So making sure that you are listening to the latest podcasts or whatever it might be, reading the different news articles that are out there, but they bring just something a little bit different to the table that isn't just kind of your 9 to 5 that you turn up and do it. It looks a little bit more different now. And I think if you don't offer that leadership, if you don't offer that work environment, you're not going to get the right talent, and you're not going to retain that right talent, as you say.
100%.
So, yeah.
Well, I think you just wrapped it up quite nicely there, Emily, with a plug for listening to podcasts. So, that brings us to the end of our discussion on today's episode. And honestly, what a really valuable conversation. Thank you, ladies. I think that was so insightful, and you've given us some of your personal experience, which I really do appreciate. So, we've explored how inclusive environments support performance, the role of culture, leadership. There's a lot in there. So thank you so much for joining us. And these are exactly the conversations we want to have on the podcast. We want to hear about people at all stages of their careers, and if you have any ideas as to what we should cover next on the podcast, do get in touch. Before we go, we'd love to hear from you. Do join the conversation on LinkedIn, share your thoughts on today's episode, and tell us what topics you'd like us to cover in our next episodes. And don't forget, subscribe if you're listening on YouTube or Spotify. It really does make a difference. Thank you for listening to the CILT UK podcast. Until next time, keep moving, keep thinking, and keep the conversation going.